There are some images you look at them, but you can't look away.
That because you're not really looking, it's looking at you.
I want you, the person listening right now, to just pause. Just let those words settle for a second in the quiet.
Yeah. Your mind probably just flashed to a few very specific images.
Exactly. Maybe a historic photograph you saw once in a textbook as a kid,
Yeah.
or a portrait that has just inexplicably haunted you for years.
We carry those select few images with us, they lodge themselves right in our memory,
Right.
but we rarely stop to ask why those specific ones stay, while millions of others just wash over us and disappear into all the noise.
And the noise is just constant now. I mean, think about the physical act of getting out of bed in the morning. You wake up, your eyes are barely even open, and you grab the phone.
You unlock it, and the avalanche begins.
Right, the avalanche.
Yeah.
We are constantly submerged in this churning sea of images. A picture of a friend's coffee, a tragic photo from a war zone, a highly produced ad for shoes, a fleeting meme.
It's an endless rapid-fire sequence of visual data, and it is the default state of modern survival.
Survival, like just trying to get through the feed.
Yeah, because the human brain cannot deeply process that volume of information. It's impossible. So to survive the visual avalanche without completely short-circuiting, we've developed this fast consumption reflex.
Oh, wow.
We glance at an image for a fraction of a second, and our brain immediately slaps a convenient prepackaged mental label on it.
Right, I do that. We look at a sunset and think, oh, that's beautiful. We look at a protest and think that's powerful, or that's iconic.
Exactly. And the moment that label is applied, the moment the brain categorizes the input, the swipe reflex takes over.
We just move on.
We move on. We trick ourselves into believing that by categorizing the image, we've actually understood it. We really believe that applying a word to a photograph means we have consumed its meaning.
It is a complete illusion of understanding, isn't it? We touch the surface of the water, we sort of skip like a stone across the top, but we never dive in.
No, we never truly see.
But then, and this is where today's deep dive comes in, there are the exceptions, the anomalies.
The images where that hyper-fast, deeply ingrained scroll reflex completely breaks down.
Exactly. And this brings us to a profound realization. I recently spent time with an incredible article on Sanosurgery. It actually serves as the entry point to their photography history series.
Right, the series focused specifically on how to read photographs.
Yeah. And honestly, reading it was an incredibly unsettling experience because it completely dismantled how I thought I interacted with visual media.
Well, the mission of that series, and really our focus here today, is to pull back the curtain on the mechanics of your own perception.
Right. We aren't going to give you a dry history lesson today. We won't recite dates or, debate the merits of specific camera lenses or exposure times.
No, the goal is to deconstruct your visual reflex.
And to do that, we need to bring one very specific photograph into the room. Steve McCurry's 1984 portrait, universally known as the Afghan Girl.
I'm sure almost everyone listening can instantly picture it.
Yeah, I just want you to picture it in your mind right now. We aren't going to analyze the historical context yet. I want you to focus purely on the feeling of encountering that image.
Picture those piercing, pale green eyes staring straight through the lens.
Picture the frayed, terracotta red shawl draped loosely over her head, framing her face.
When you encounter that image, the swipe reflex just dies. You stop.
You freeze. And my genuine question is, if our brains are so biologically and culturally wired to just skim, label, and discard, why does that reflex fail us here?
That's a great question.
Why can't we escape this specific piece of paper?
Because you are operating under a deeply held misconception about your own autonomy.
Great, my autonomy.
Yeah. When you look at that photograph, you believe you are freely choosing to stare into her eyes. You think your empathy is deciding to linger on her face.
I mean, yeah, I feel like I'm choosing to look at her.
You think you are the one driving the interaction, but you aren't choosing anything. You haven't decided to look. You have been caught.
Caught, like it's a trap.
The viewer is not in control of their own eyes. The image is controlling where you look.
I'm trying to visualize how that is even possible. It makes me think of walking into a massive labyrinth-like museum.
Okay, walk me through that.
Well, you walk through the front glass doors, and you start wandering the corridors. You take a left down a long hallway. You take a right at a sculpture. You feel completely autonomous.
Right, you're making the choices.
You think you are freely choosing where to step based on your own organic curiosity. And eventually, you find yourself standing in the center of one specific, dimly lit room, staring at one specific painting.
And you think you found your way there by chance. You feel glad your instincts led you to this quiet room.
Exactly, but you didn't find it by chance. The unseen architect of that museum designed the angles of the walls, the subtle slope of the floor, the acoustic dampening, and the placement of the doorways.
Just to secretly, inevitably funnel you into that exact room.
Yes, you were never wandering freely, you were being guided the entire time.
It's a perfect analogy. The architect made the choices for you long before you ever bought a ticket. And in the context of the Afghan Girl, you can actually feel this invisible architecture working against you.
How so?
Well, try to resist it. Try to force your gaze to the very edge of the frame. Try to focus on the blurry sea green background behind her shoulder.
I actually tried this after reading the Sonosurgy piece. I pulled the photo up on my screen.
And what happened?
I told myself I would just look at the texture of the green wall behind her. I physically couldn't hold my focus there for more than a second or two.
Your eye tries to wander the corridors of the image. It tries to escape. But an indelible force snaps your attention right back to the center. You cannot rest anywhere else.
My eyes literally felt strangely uncomfortable, and they just rubber banded back to her face.
But hold on, I have to push back on this entirely.
Tell me what you're thinking.
You are describing a machine. You are describing a mechanical system of invisible walls and architects and traps.
Yeah. But this is a real human being. This is a young girl who lived in a refugee camp. The sheer terror, the intense trauma in those eyes isn't a trick of the light, it's her actual lived reality.
Absolutely.
There is fear, but there is also this fierce, undeniable defiance. If you tell me that my empathy for her is just a byproduct of geometric lines and optical rubber bands, that feels incredibly cynical.
I get that.
It feels like we are completely dismissing her human suffering and reducing it to a math equation.
It's a vital point, and honestly, it's where a lot of people struggle when they begin to analyze art this deeply. We are not dismissing her lived reality. The emotion is absolutely real.
Okay, but then how does the math fit in?
The trauma, the defiance, the profound humanity, all of that is genuinely present in the silver halide of the film. But millions of photographs capture genuine human trauma.
Right.
Millions of images show profound suffering, and you scroll past almost all of them in a fraction of a second. The emotion alone is not what stops you.
Wow, that's a hard truth to swallow.
Think of it this way. The human emotion is the skin. The human emotion is the skin that is stretched over an invisible skeleton. Without that perfectly engineered, rigid skeleton underneath, the skin, the emotion, would simply collapse.
It wouldn't hold up.
It would lack the structure required to hold your attention. If the underlying geometry of the photograph wasn't actively forcing your eyes to stay put, you would treat her profound trauma the exact same way you treat every other tragic image on your feed.
I'd look at her, think, what a tragic story, apply my mental label, and swipe away.
Exactly. The unseen structure is the anchor. It is the only thing that holds you in place long enough to actually feel the emotion she is projecting.
Okay, if human emotion is just the skin, then Steve McCurry must have built a very specific skeleton underneath it to keep my eyes from escaping.
He did.
So where are the walls in this specific photo? How does the skeleton actually function?
It functions through boundaries and biological contrast. Let's look at the red shawl draped over her head and shoulders. Functionally, within the borders of the frame, it acts as an inescapable boundary.
It creates an oval.
A frame within a frame. And that internal frame is built on optical tension.
Optical tension?
Yeah. The shawl is a rich terracotta red, and the background is a mottled sea green. Red and green are complementary colors. They sit on exact opposite ends of the color wheel.
Right. Classic color theory.
But it's more than theory. Visible light travels in waves. Red waves are longer, green waves are shorter. When they are placed directly next to each other, like the edge of that shawl against the background, your eye is constantly trying to adjust its focal lengths.
Wait, to process both wavelengths at the same time?
Exactly. The muscles in your eye are physically working harder, the optic nerve fatigues.
So my eye is physically doing extra work just to look at the border?
Yes. This creates a literal physiological sensation of rejection. Artists call it visual vibration, but biologically, it is fatigue.
Your brain doesn't like that fatigue.
No, it doesn't. So when your eye tries to escape the intensity of her face and wanders out toward the background, it hits that vibrating red-green boundary and searches for an escape route.
It hits the border, it feels the fatigue, and it literally cannot rest there. It bounces.
It bounces directly back to the sharpest, most physiologically comfortable point of focus within the oval, the piercing green eyes.
Wow.
The red shawl pushes you in, the sharp eyes pull you in, and you are locked in place.
I see the skeleton now. I see the oval frame and the optical tension of the colors trapping me. But even inside that trap, my eyes aren't standing still.
What do you mean?
When I look at her, I feel like I'm sliding down her face. There is a constant, almost rhythmic movement. What is pulling me downward if the frame is just holding me in?
You're sliding because you're following a current. You're following the light.
The light.
To understand how photographs read you, we have to fundamentally shift how we think about light.
Hmm.
We usually think of light as a static utility.
Like a lamp turned on in a dark room, just illuminating objects so we don't trip over them. A tool for visibility.
Right? But in a masterwork, light is an active flowing river. It is a moving current that actively guides your eye through the geography of the image. And it works because it taps into our deepest evolutionary biology.
Evolutionary biology. How does light in a photo connect to evolution?
Think about the development of the human eye.
Oh.
We are biologically wired to seek out the brightest, highest contrast points in our environment. This isn't an aesthetic preference. It is a primal survival mechanism.
Because of our ancestors.
Exactly. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancient ancestors needed to scan the dark for movement, for predators lurking in the shadows, or for the safety and warmth of a distant fire.
Right.
The photoreceptor cells in our eyes are designed to be hypersensitive to contrast. Our visual system is physically disoriented and vulnerable in the dark. We instinctively automatically search for the light to feel safe.
We are essentially highly evolved biological moths.
That's a great way to put it. Trace the light in the Afghan Girl portrait with that in mind. The light hits softly on the left side of the frame, the viewer's left. It illuminates her left eye and cheek with striking clarity.
It's very bright right there on the cheekbone.
Now follow the current. The light travels down the bridge of her nose, and as it moves toward the right side of her face, it begins to fade. It slips down into the dark, heavy folds of the red shawl on the right side of her neck.
It's a steep gradient into deep shadows.
Remember your biology. Your eye naturally follows the downward slope of her nose into those dark folds of the fabric. But your visual system doesn't like the dark.
Because it feels unsafe.
Right. The cones in your eyes, which process color and detail, need bright light to function. When they hit that shadow, they lose their power. Your visual system panics. It feels blind in the shadow. It wants to survive. What does it automatically do?
It searches for the nearest, brightest thing to grab onto.
It catches the edge of the shadow, the sharp line of contrast, and is swept right back up the flowing river of light, straight to the brightest, sharpest points in the image, the fully illuminated green eyes.
It is a continuous loop. Left cheek, down the nose, into the shadows, biological panic, snap back to the bright eyes.
Over and over. You feel like you're staring motionless at a static piece of paper, but your eye is caught in a perpetual motion loop, powered by the river of light and contained by the vibrating skeleton of the red shawl.
Realizing that my physical biology is being manipulated that precisely by a flat image, it makes me reconsider everything I do when I go to an art gallery.
It changes everything.
Which actually brings up a confession I have to make, a habit I have.
Let's hear it.
When I look at a famous, iconic photograph, especially one I've seen 100 times, I will immediately start scanning the frame for a tiny flaw.
A flaw? Like what?
A microscopic detail. In this photo, I will bypass the eyes and zoom straight in on the frayed, torn edge of the red fabric near her shoulder, or I'll look for a tiny speck of dirt on her skin.
Why do you think you seek out those tiny flaws instead of taking in the whole image?
Ego. Mostly ego. In school, we are almost taught to look at art this way. Find the hidden symbol. Find the brush stroke. Find the tiny flaw that proves it's real.
So it makes you feel like an insider.
Exactly. When I zero in on that torn thread, it makes me feel observant. I tell myself, everyone else is just blindly staring at her eyes, but I am seeing the real story. I notice the torn thread. Therefore, I understand the gritty reality of her situation better than the casual observer.
It gives you this false illusion of having a deep analytical understanding of the image.
Yes.
The Sano-Sergi analysis points out exactly why this is a massive, fundamental error in how we read photographs. Detail is the absolute last layer you should look at, not the first.
Not the first.
No. When you zoom in immediately on a frayed edge of fabric, you are pulling yourself completely out of the master plan.
But isn't the detail where the grit is? The torn fabric is the evidence of poverty, of displacement.
Context is everything.
Yeah.
A frayed edge means absolutely nothing if you don't first understand the invisible structure it rests on.
Right.
It means nothing if you don't understand the river of light that flows past it. If you focus on the torn fabric too early, You aren't actually seeing the photographs, you're just isolating a few grains of silver on a piece of film. Reduction is not understanding.
So by trying to look deeper, I'm actually just skimming a different part of the surface.
Zooming in early is just another variation of the scrolling reflex. It is a defense mechanism.
A defense mechanism against what?
You are running away from the intense emotional and optical trap of the whole image. You are running away from the structure and hiding in a tiny, insignificant corner of the frame to feel like you have control again. You are staring at the thread, but you have entirely missed the tapestry.
So I've never actually been looking.
No, you've just been thinking you were.
All those hours spent in museums, all those documentaries watched, all those iconic images burned into my brain, and I've just been sliding across the surface this whole time.
Once you see the machinery, once you recognize the invisible skeleton, the boundaries, the river of light, and the way your own biological reflexes are utilized against you, you can never return to your old way of consuming images.
The innocence is just gone.
The innocent, unthinking, emotional reaction you used to have is gone. Now, when you look at the Afghan Girl, you won't just feel the sorrow or the strength. You will feel the tension of the red and green fatiguing your optic nerve.
I'll feel the biology.
You will trace the path of the light down her nose. You will physically feel your eye being caught in the dark and thrown back to the light.
Looking is just touching the surface. Seeing is understanding the machine behind it.
That is the ultimate transformation the Sandal Sergi series is trying to guide us toward. To truly see an image is to lose the ability to see it the way you did before.
It's a permanent shift in reality. And before we go, I want to bridge this realization into the world we navigate every single day. Think about Steve McCurry capturing that image in 1984. He used this invisible architecture, the framing, the light loops, the color tension, to capture a profound human truth and make us stop and feel it. He harnessed your biology to tell a human story.
Now, take a breath and think about the screen in your pocket.
Exactly. Think about your phone. The exact same biological traps, the contrast gradients, the strategic placement of bright colors, the specific visual loops are being used right now.
Not to show you truth, but to keep your thumb from swiping away.
UI designers know exactly how to fatigue your optic nerve and where to place a bright red notification badge to force your eye to bounce back to the center of the screen.
If a single photograph from 1984 can guide your optical system so completely, consider the intent of the designers building your digital world today. What are thousands of algorithmically engineered images doing to your biology every hour?
Who is designing the walls of the museum you are walking through every time you unlock your screen? And who is really in control of where you look? Carry that question with you.